answers. Okay. So why do we help really? There are a couple of factors that I want to introduce and explain why do we help or why do we not help sometimes. So social exchange theory, do you still remember this term, social exchange theory? We are trying to balance the, the cost and the benefits, right? So that's the social exchange theory suggested by Tybalt and Kelly in 1959. So much of the things that we do or we do not do is actually because of our desire to maximize our rewards and minimize our costs. So we do balance the weight of the costs and also the benefits, right? Not only in the interpersonal relationship that we talked about last time, but also in helping behaviors. So we will consider like in the social exchange theory, because the reward will be something that is we will look at, we will emphasize is that that will include the norm of reciprocity, the relief, the personal distress, whether the reward will be helping to relieve the personal distress and whether the reward will be relevant to social responsibility, will be something that encourage us, motivate us to help the others or not. So these will be like let me just go over these one by one. For the norm of reciprocity, meaning that society, maybe in Asian culture or so, for example, we would like to help the others because we are so counting on the interpersonal relationship. We want a harmonic relationship with the others in a community. So if there's such a social norm that we will help each other a lot, then we will follow. Okay, and that's rewarding, because if we follow the social norm of helping the others, and I help you, you help me next time, so that's a reward of helping. And also that helping the others will also be able to relieve or reduce the personal distress as well. So most of the time when we are, have the capacity to help the others, after helping the others, you feel good about yourself. So we'll also talk about these more in depth in the following slides, but mind you, that's a reward of helping as well. And the third factor, which is the social responsibility, meaning that maybe you have the roles to help, such as, for example, you're like a chairperson of the charity group, or you're the group member of a committee member of a nonprofit community organization to help the others. So you might have social roles and you might carry some social responsibility of helping. And that responsibility is also a reward of helping as well, motivating us to help the others and also to perform prosocially. And those are the rewards, but what about the cost? So I was talking about social exchange theory, not only emphasizing the rewards, but also minimizing our costs. So the costs of helping, such as it includes physical danger, such as like in the dog in a video that we watch just now involving two dogs, right? So the second dog who is trying to help the first dog that was injured on the highway. So they might the second dog might went through this physical danger or risk his life or her life. And so as the other examples, such as like firefighters or so and so, that will be the cost and time. Not only that involving physical danger will stop us from helping, but also the time. So think about, I will give you more examples as well. Think about when you are rushing to another event or to a place, would you like to stop to help the person who are in need? Versus when you have a lot of time, free time, and you're not rushing to another place, would you be more likely to, to help that person who is in need? Any thoughts? Does time matter? Does time matter affect how much we help or how much we do not help the others? Well, definitely, because time is a cost, right? Everyone is so it's equal in which we have like a limited amounts of time every day, right? So we only have certain amounts of time we want to do things that we want to pursue. And other, like if you're really busy, like doing things that you want to pursue, then you probably won't have a lot of time to help the others. So that will be a cost of helping. So people, like what I said, do weigh the balances. When the balance, we help the others when we benefits outweigh the costs, meaning there's more reward than costs of helping, then we're probably more likely to help the others. And also, like what I said, psychological reward could be a reward as well, such as happiness after we help the others, like what is shown in the figure in the cartoon. Any questions? Okay, well, so just to elaborate a little bit about the causes of helping or not helping. So if we talk about causes of helping, right? If we help the others, we might lose our time. We might be involved, engage ourselves in physical danger. But what about not helping? Does it cost you anything? Do you think you're not giving a hand to a person who is in need will be costly, ignoring the need of the others? Will it be costly, cost you anything? Okay, so I see a response in the chat box, yes. Okay, well, it does. Not only, it might not be tangible, but it's psychological. So for example, personal distress. When we feel empathetic concern of the victim or those who are in need, for example, if, okay, so I got a private response. People are thinking that they are poor and shame of themselves by not helping, right? Okay. Right. So if you feel empathetic for the victim who, like, for example, if you encounter a person who got hit by a car, and then was lying down on the ground, and then you passed by, but you were so busy, you were rushing to another place, but then you didn't really give a hand to that person. And then you might think back and then thought about, even though you want to help that person, the victim, but then you didn't stop and help. And that will give you the personal distress by not helping, okay? Because you feel sorry for not helping that victim. And then the norm of reciprocity is in which, like what I said, if there's a norm, social norm in a community that you're expected to help the others, you help her and then they will help you the next time, and so on and so forth. So if you do not help them, then they might not help you next time. So not meeting the expectations from the people in the same group or in a same social community, that will cost you something as well. And also the norm of social responsibility. So well, it's not only the social norm, but also maybe you have like a social roles. For example, you're in a particular helping group, committee member, but then you're not helping the others, you're not pro-social enough, then that expectation is not met, in which then you will lose the reputation, or you would lose like a social role, or you're not meeting the expectations from the others as well in that sense. Any questions or comments? Okay, so another example for the norm of social responsibility is that, for example, if you're a doctor, for example, but then you were just off from work and you were walking home, and then you see a person who was injured on the road, but then you were so busy and then you did not give a hand to that person. Then if the others find out that you're a doctor and didn't stop to help, then you violate the norm of social responsibility as well. Okay, it's just an example, because you're expected to help the others, if especially when you're carrying the role of being a doctor. So just to continue on about why do we help or not help under the social exchange theory, using like the real life examples. So like what I said, there could be personal distress if you feel empathetic concern for the victim. So in the news on the right, although it's in Chinese, but then there's an English description here. It makes me uncomfortable not to have people in danger. So that is why that person in the article, in a news article, is like trying to, who is the driver of a private car, like who trying to help the other person who was like in an accident or so and so. So that will be something that is like altruistic and also pro-social, because it does not like benefit the person who is giving a hand to the victim, but it actually makes him uncomfortable not to help people in danger. This is a personal distress that motivate him to help the victims in the accident or in a dangerous scene. Okay, so another news article. This is about the example for a norm of social responsibility and reciprocity. So there's a quote, two quotes in this news article where the the school staff is like was trying to like no, which is like he was like not involved in an accident, but then he was trying to help the private car driver, to help him in the end. And so that's like altruistic and it's dangerous in a way. That the person, the school staff who was not engaged in the accident in the first place, who was just like close by when there's the accident, he was worried that the explosion might hurt the people in school, and that's why he gave a hand to the driver or the people who were involved in the accident. So another statement that was made by the school staff is that it reflects the spirit of reciprocity among Hong Kong people. So these are this is another example of why or how the factors affecting us to help the others or not. Okay, so again is the norm of social responsibility, reciprocity, and also the whether there's empathetic this personal distress that was motivating us to help, okay, or not to help. Okay. All right, so those are just some like real life examples, but again, I gave you guys as well like other examples as well just now, in addition to the news article. So please do come up with your own examples for the like why we're helping and why we are not helping. Okay, so why do we help? Just to continue, altruism specifically, we help even when doing so is costly to ourselves. If we are going to what if like it costs you too much? Would you be, what would motivate you to help the others? Do you believe altruism exists? Do you believe altruism exists? Do you think so? Do you think there are people who are trying to help the others, and even it cost them their lives, so on and so forth? Do you agree or disagree? Well, by social exchange theory, altruism does not exist. Okay, well, let me see some private responses. Agree, under social exchange, it is impossible, right? So yeah, if we are only counting on depending on the social exchange theory, it doesn't exist because we're trying to balance the benefits and cost, right? Only we help when we get benefits, not only tangible benefits, but psychological benefits. Isn't that true? Right? So according to social exchange theory, it's hard to explain altruistic acts. So like in a cartoon, you see there's a person who is trying to like a victim was like almost died from like suffer fallen into water and trying to get for yell for help and stuff like that. But there's an expensive watch, and then the other person who walked by and he was trying to help. It's only because of the benefits that he could get. Maybe he wants the watch or something like that. So that's just a joke, but then it illustrates how much we really, like based on the social exchange theory, we would balance the benefits and costs there. Under social exchange theory, it's believed that we only count on the rewards instead of like there's the altruism. Okay. So what about the, would you think, just to elaborate a little bit more about how empathy could be related or motivating, explaining altruism, there's the empathy altruism hypothesis suggested by Basson in 1991. So what does empathy mean, first of all? So when we talk about empathy, it's about how well you can put yourself into other shoes, right? You experience and then to feel how the others feel, and then the way to do in a way that you are able to experience, you're put into other shoes to experience events and emotions, how bad they feel, how good they feel, how bad they experience, how good they experience. So that's empathy. So that's the, okay, sorry. So that's the, like the very fundamental elements that will be underlying altruism under these hypotheses. It's not about the social exchange theory. So witnessing others in distress stimulates two reactions. What do you think that is? Observing the others who are like being victimized or under stress, what reactions will be induced in you whenever you see people suffering? Okay, so I see a response, empathy. What else? Okay, well, try to think about the answers whenever I bring out some questions. We would really want, so one of you guys said, if you don't mind, please send the message to the group so that everyone can see the message instead of just me. So one of you guys said really want to help the others to escape the situation, right? So you feel bad for that person. You can think about, put yourself into other shoes to experience, to feel how they feel, right? Okay, so witnessing, observing the others who are suffering will actually leads to two reactions. One is distress, and another one is empathy. So distress is where we feel uncomfortable when we are seeing others suffering mostly. So that's a normal reaction in which we're motivated, because whenever we have distress in us, we tend to do things to remove our distress. And that is by helping in this context. So by having the others would actually remove the distress that when we are observing the others who are suffering. And that's the egoistic motivation, because that's more like trying to help yourself to get rid of the personal distress instead of like other reasons, right? So that's egoistic motivation, self-centered motivation. And then empathy is another reaction in which we just talk about it, right? We just talk about the definition that actually directs our attention to others person, distress, and then we are motivated to reduce their distress because we feel how they feel, we experience how they experience in terms of emotion or other like thoughts. And so that will be altruistic motivation. So mostly empathy could be very much explaining altruistic acts in that case. Okay, but then there are two possible motivations for us to be helping the others or when we see others suffering. So one is distress and another one is empathy. So either, distress or empathy would actually motivate us to help, but it's just because of the based on different motivations. One is more self-centered and the other one is more other person-centered, which is altruistic. Okay. Any questions so far? Okay. Right. Okay. Why? So let's take a look of the cartoons together just to go through the logic about empathy altruism hypothesis again. So for example, have you ever observed people who are in need of help? For example, homeless people like begging money on the streets. Have you ever seen those? Yes, right? What about others? Okay, so just want to make sure. So everybody should have that kind of experience or encounterance, right? So do you feel empathy for this person, usually the homeless person, or, like maybe they have disability or begging for money? Yes. Okay, so if your answer is yes, then you probably will help regardless whether it is your own self-interest to do so or not. Okay, but then if there's an answer, if you don't want to help, you don't feel empathy for that person, then you help only if it is your own to fulfill your self-interest to do so. That is more the social exchange theory. Okay, but for if you say yes to empathy question, that will be more altruistic. The altruism hypothesis that will explain your acts. Okay, so maybe like if you don't, your answer to this question is no. In that case, you might be one of the reward that you want to get from helping the others might be that you want the praises, you want the positive regard, we want to have a good reputation among your friends. So that will be like the social exchange reward theory. But then social exchange theory to explain such a phenomenon. But then for the yes to that question, that will be more about your empathy towards that explain mostly your altruistic acts. Any thoughts or comments? Any disagreement? Okay, all right. So let's move on. If you don't have any like thoughts, question, or like difficulties in understanding. So again, be able to tell the difference or relationship between prosocial behaviors and altruism. And then think about the factors that will motivate you to help, and factors or costs that will not that will stop you from helping. Okay, and also think about like the empathy altruistic hypothesis, altruism hypothesis, or social exchange theory that will explain why we are helping the others or not. Okay. So what about personal factors? Do you think there could be like individual differences in addition to social exchange theory and then the empathy altruism theory hypothesis? Yes. So what are the possible personal factors that affect us to help the others or not? Okay, well, one of the personal factor is the personality, which is an individual difference, right? There could be like research or scholars have been suggesting that there's actually personality for being altruistic. Penner in 2002, they found that there's the qualities, the personality traits that actually cause someone to help others in a wide range of situations. It's not only one single specific situation, but a wide range of situations. So that's altruistic personality. So this personality does not determine the behavior alone, though. There's a combination of the different factors in affecting why or when that person is helping, giving hands to the others. So for example, specifically, those people with high scores on personality tests of altruism are not that much more likely to help than those who with lower scores, and why. So although there could be altruistic personality, but this personality is not shown to be directly or completely explain our altruistic acts or prosocial behaviors. Culture, okay, what else? I see a response from the chat box. Any other thoughts that will contribute to the outcome of helping or not? Okay, all right. So it could be many different factors. They don't have time, right? Okay, so I see another private response. Okay, well, again, I just want to make sure you understand the point that with the altruistic personality doesn't necessarily mean that they will help the other people a lot, like 100%, okay, or all the time. It might involve some other factors as well. Okay, so cultural differences is one of the factor that will be also going along with the personality that determine their behaviors. And also current mood, situational pressures. We are going to dig deeper about these individual differences in addition to personality, including current mood and the situation pressures and so on and so forth, as well as cultural differences. How are these related to altruistic personality, altruistic behaviors or helping behaviors? So think about those, and I'm going to talk about this one by one. So the cultural differences. So for example, independence versus interdependent culture. What would you expect one culture? I mean, people in one culture would help the others more than the other culture. For example, comparing the independent versus interdependent cultures. What do you think? Any guesses? Any guesses? Would you think which culture would actually help the others more? Okay, so I see a response. Asians are more likely to help the others. Okay, what else? Any disagreement or agreement? Why? Why so? So we are more interdependent, isn't it? Right, in Asian or in Chinese culture. So self versus group oriented will be a factor in affecting how much we help the others, right? Not only the personality traits, so not only the altruistic personality, but also cultural factor. So like I said earlier, when I talk about like when sometimes we might be more likely to help the others in some communities. For example, in some cultures, we're more likely to help the others because we, especially those who are in group. So, so that we, for example, if we are like in an interdependent culture, for example, Asian or Chinese culture, we might want to help the others so that they will help us next time. And because we are counting on each other in doing a lot of things, we want to maintain a harmonic relationship among the with the others in a community. So that's more likely that we will help the in-group members, those who are belonging to the same group or in the same culture. But what about like, so if, and we are like less likely to help the others that we perceive to be our group members. So for example, like if they are not, it's just an example. For example, you're like in a group of like Boy Scouts, or a community organization, you might be more giving hands to those who have similar background or in the same community group, versus to like those giving hands to non-group members. Okay, so that would be something that to be considered when we are thinking about one will be giving a hand to the others, helping the others or not. So it involves the independent versus the interdependent culture, but not only the personality traits. Okay, any questions or thoughts, disagreement or agreement? So another example, like for in-group versus out-group, it's more like it could be like political parties. Like if they are in the same political party, then they might help the other, the people in the same group more, or against or not less likely to help the group who are not in the same political party. Okay, so that's another societal example. All right, so just to continue on about the cultural differences. Well, you can see, let's take a look at the figures on the right. So at the top, there's the independent self schema. And then at the bottom, there's the interdependent self schema. So you can see that independent self schema, what's the difference between these and the top and the bottom figure? You can see there are more overlaps between yourself with your friends in the same group in the interdependent culture versus the independent culture. So you're more separated from even the in-group members, right? You can see, so this is how we treat the in-group members or the out-group members differently across the independent versus the interdependent culture. So how strongly we are, just in conclusion, how strongly we are connected with the others, such as the in-group members or the out-group members. So out-group members will be like strangers, for example, will be determining whether we will help them or not. The line between us and them is more firmly drawn in interdependent cultures. So you can see like the interdependent culture. So there's an in-group versus the out-group, and then we will very likely to help the in-group people instead of the out-group people. But this line is less firmly connected in the independent culture. Okay, so just to compare the differences across the interdependent and dependent culture, independent culture. So another term that I want to introduce under the cultural differences is that the simpatia, which is the Spanish word for meaning that being friendly, polite, and good nature, pleasant, and helping the others. So this is to say, I mean, this is common. I mean, these helping behavior is actually prevalent across and quite common in 23 countries, but then people in countries that value sympatia help more than in countries that did not. Meaning that like if one social norm or like one culture, they are favoring the helping behaviors more, which is sympatia, which is happening like they're trying to compare 23 countries. And if those that are appreciating the helping behaviors more, they will help more. They will give hands more, 83% versus 66%. So this is just to illustrate how like research findings are also suggesting that could be like a cultural differences in helping. Okay. All right, so next I will be talking about the mood factor, how that's affecting us in to help or not. So how about we take a few minutes break, 5 minutes, toilet or water break, and we'll be back and finish all the slides, and then we'll move on to the group presentation. So get prepared, okay? All right, so if you don't have any questions, let's take a 5-minute break and we will be back in 5 minutes. Okay, thank you. Okay, so let's get back. So let's finish all the slides that I want to talk about today, and then we'll move on straight. We will move straight away to the presentation in a minute. So again, we will be having two groups to present. One is first group is Aoyang Yao Mei, and then the second group is Yun Cheng Yi. Okay, presentation. All right, so just get ready and all right. Okay, so so we talk about like possibly the cultural differences, right? The cultural differences or the factors will be affecting whether the we will be helping the others or not, right? So that is one of the things that will be complicating or like affecting even whether we will help or not, even though we might have the altruistic personality. So the other factor is the mood. Okay, so whether we feel good about ourselves or not, or so in one condition is which is laid out in the figures cartoons here. So condition A, like there's you found a $5, okay, on the street, and then the condition B, you did not find any money on the street. And then do you think in which condition you are more likely to help? Mind you, the money is not related to that person who is in need for help. Okay. So A, right? Condition A. So some of you guys said. So why? It's very much because whenever, so although $5 is not a lot to us, right? So, but imagine like $500 or something like that. So condition A, then you pick up $500 notes, and you probably feel happy or feel good, and that will motivate you to help the person who is like in need. But in another condition, you might not be motivated to help because you didn't feel good about because you didn't really pick up any money from the street on the street. So feel good or not will actually motivating us to help the stranger or not. And that was demonstrated by the study back in 1972. So again, there are two conditions. One is that you pick up money randomly from the streets, but then in the other condition, you did not find any money on the streets. And that is not related to stranger. It's just how much you will be motivated to help that will be measured in that study. So in that study, 4% of the participants who did not find money helped the person. The man pick up his papers. So meaning the stranger, okay? But then for those who find it down, meaning that money on the streets actually stopped to help that stranger, 84%. So condition A, 84%, condition B, 4%. Is that a big difference? Yes, there is, right? Obviously, 84 versus 4%, it's a lot difference, which was merely caused by the addition or the factor about whether you feel good or you are in a good mood or not, okay? Which is indicated by how whether you could find a dime on the street, okay? Any questions about these findings, or do you agree or disagree? Have you ever encountered such an experience? When you feel good about yourself, when you have a good mood, will you be more likely to help the others? Have you ever had that experience where you feel good versus when you had a bad day? Will you be more likely to help the others? In which mood? Okay. So some of you guys said yes, right? So whenever we are in a good mood, or when versus when we are in a bad mood, we might behave differently. So especially if we are like having a good mood, then we are probably more likely to help the others as well, right? Okay, thank you. So that is demonstrated, supported by these research findings as well. So just to continue on, good moods makes us look on the bright side of life, which is suggested by another research finding in 1987. It's just to illustrate how important mood is to us when we're to decide whether we will help the others. Helping the others can actually prolong our good mood. And because whenever we help the others who are in need, we might also feel good about ourselves as a benefit, psychological reward as well, like what I said, like to relieve our personal distress and so on and so forth. Good moods actually will, like increase the level of attention we pay to ourselves, and these good mood factor or situation will actually make us more likely to behave according to our own values and ideals. And that's more about self-awareness. So whenever we are in the good mood, we feel happy about things that are happening around you, then you pay more attention to, like yourself, and then you will be more likely to behave consistent to your own values. So for example, you think you are a very genuine or generous person, then you're probably in a good mood, then you're probably more aware of that point, in which that will motivate you to help the others more as well. Okay, any questions about this point? So good moods not only, like increase are likely to help the others, but it's also explainable by how much attention we pay to ourselves as well when we're in a good mood. That's self-awareness. So what about feel sad? Do we feel, when we feel sad, when we had a bad day, do we try to do good to the others? What do you think? Is there any example in which you feel sad, but then you still help the others? Okay, so I see a response, yes. Okay, why? Why do you think so? Can escape the sadness. Okay, so meanings distraction, right? One of you guys said. Okay, so in 1987, there's like a group of scholars saying or finding the result to support that actually not only feeling good will leads to increase of helping behaviors, but also feeling sad can also, in certain situations, we will be more motivated to help the others as well. So I see another response. Cause I'm proud of myself, right? So by the way, please do try to share your comments to the group so that to everyone, not only to me, because I kept receiving private messages, so that we are on the same page, everyone. Okay, thanks for sharing. So when we feel sad, we are motivated to do things that make us feel better as well, don't we? So not only that, when we feel good, we will help. When we feel sad, we have a bad day, we try to make ourselves to feel better by helping the others, extending our help to the others, because helping the others is actually making us feel good or feel happy, right? So that's one of the way to get benefits from helping as well. So that is why when we are feeling sad, we also are likely to help as well. So do good will actually feel good, right? We could do good to the others, then we feel good about ourselves as well. Okay, so not only so there are two different rationale for feeling good or feeling sad, and how they're actually motivating us to help. So there are two different pathways. So one is like to getting more psychological reward by feeling good about ourselves after helping in a sad situation. But in the happy situation or in a good mood situation, that's more likely to be that we are more self-aware about ourselves, and also, like we might want to like focus on things that are bright or positive. So that's why we are helping the others. Okay, so two different pathways that you need to understand. So just to continue on, another, like rationale about when we feel sad, we still are motivated to do good to the others, meaning helping, is that one kind of bad mood specifically is leading to an increase in helping, which is feeling guilty. Okay, so if you feel empathy and also guilt for the victim, then you're probably very likely to help, even though you're in like a bad mood, right? So, well, like one study actually found that the churchgoers, like the people with religious belief would be likely to donate money to charities before attending the confession than afterwards. Meaning that it's actually they might have guilt. By the way, I might have a hello. I might have unstable internet connection. So please do let me know if you cannot hear me well or you cannot see my shared screen. So anyway, so in this study by Harris and Benson in 1975, they actually investigated churchgoers who are the religious belief people. Before and after they do confession, and there's actually a difference between, like their likelihood to donate. Actually, they will be more likely to donate money before attending the confession, where when compares to afterwards. And because like when you after you confess your sins, your guilt, and that's actually reducing your guilt, right? So that acts will actually reduce the likelihood for you to donate money. But if you have a lot of guilt to the other people, then you probably were more likely to donate money. That's their argument. So do you agree or do you disagree? What do you think? Do you agree or do you disagree? Do you think guilt would be motivating us to help? Not only empathy, but guilt. Not only like good mood, but guilt. Do you agree? Have you ever had that experience? Okay, not really. Okay, right? So sometimes if we do bad things to the others, like if you have guilt, you feel sinful, you might be more likely to help the others to make you feel better about yourself as well. Isn't that true? Right? Okay, so just think about your own examples, and that's the research finding that was suggested back then in one of the studies. So finishing the personal factors. So we talk about mood, cultural factors, personality, so on and so forth. What about situational factors? So not only individual differences, but also the context. In certain situations, we might be more likely to help the others, right? Versus the other situations. So let's take a look at this video on the right. What do you observe? What do you observe? So there's a person lying down, right? Man lying down on the floor. And are the passerbys helping? No, no one cares. Not really. Okay, bystander. So we are going to talk about the bystander effects, but that's the observation that we have, right, for this video. Like people are just passing by, not caring, not trying to extend their help to this person who is lying on the floor, right? So there could be like situational factors such as the rural versus urban. Let's take a look at this first. So what will you do in this situation then? Will you just walk by and ignore the person? Help. Okay. So someone said you will be giving him a help. What else? Any other thoughts or reactions? Okay. Well, we might have different reasons or different motivations or decisions to help or not. Some of you guys said yes. Why do you help? So there's a hypothesis which is called the urban overload hypothesis. So as you can see, like here, there's it seems to be that there's quite amounts of people like walking by. Although this video is quite short, but then imagine there's a lot of people walking by every minute, every second. So first, like comparing small towns versus large cities. And one of the study that was done in 1983 to suggest there's the urban overload hypothesis, meaning that people living in the cities are constantly being overwhelmed by stimulation and the things that are happening around them, which and so they try to keep themselves to avoid being overwhelmed or bombarded by these stimulation, and so they might be ignoring the incidents such as this in this very context. Okay, so that is the urban overload hypothesis that might be also applicable to Hong Kong people. Isn't that true? So imagine if like this is like an MTR station, and right outside the MTR station, and there's a person lying there, and there's a bunch of people walking by, and because we are so busy, we are rushing to different places, we are so overwhelmed by our work, people are getting off their work late and stuff like that. So that is like the problem encountered by urban people, the large city people like Hong Kong people, right? So because of the urban overload hypothesis, we might not be given a hand to, we might not stop ourselves to help that person, such as like in this video. Okay, so this is just to illustrate one of the hypotheses to explain why some people might not giving hands to this person. But then there's more related to the situational factors. Another big concept that I want to illustrate is the bystander effect. So which is very much demonstrate, the effect is demonstrated in one of the classic real life example, Kitty Genovese's murder. She was murdered in New York City. So actually, when there was actually 38 people witnessing her being stabbed to death over a period of 45 minutes. That's a long period of time, isn't it? And then people around, there are actually 38 people watching this happen in New York City. So this is a New York City, which is an urban, like a city. And there's a lot of people like BC City, people are overwhelmed by different, like stimulation experiences like Hong Kong people. But then not a single person called the police. What happened? Why? So let's take a look at these videos very quickly so that we can have more elaboration and discussion. So mind you, this is happening in the New York City. Okay, give me a second. Okay, so let's watch this video together, and it's about the Kitty. The very case that I just mentioned. So, and we will see why people, or let's think about how or why people can ignore such a thing and not to call the police at the end. And then that person was stabbed to death.
In 1964, Kitty Genovese was brutally stabbed to death in Queens, New York. The attack lasted over 30 minutes. Her assailant twice left the scene and returned to continue the assault. 38 witnesses watched from their apartment windows, neither coming to her aid nor calling the police as she cried for help. The public was outraged over the apparent callousness and lack of social responsibility on the part of the bystanders. Intrigued by the bystanders' inaction, Princeton psychologist John Darley and his colleague Bibb Latané decided to try to identify the factors that produce this type of passivity.
The key to unlocking this is the fact that 38 people failed to help. That's what shocks us. And if we picture one person looking, turning away and failing to help, another person looking, turning away, that's awful, that's terrifying. But if we realize that there were complex networks of relationships between the bystanders, and that these networks the effects that produces tend to cascade to produce no responding, then we get it. And what's so terrifying turns out to be the explanatory cue.
Darley and Latine hypothesized that the presence of others can influence an individual's interpretation of events. Emergencies occur infrequently and often are ambiguous. For example, is this man experiencing a medical emergency, or is he perhaps intoxicated? Is action warranted in this situation? When in a group, a person checks the reactions of others. If other observers appear calm and indifferent, it is assumed everything must be okay. One concludes, the man must be drunk, and continues walking. By contrast, when a bystander is alone, the hypothesis predicts he or she is more likely to assess the situation accurately and then provide help to the individual in distress.
Okay, so let's get back. So what did you observe in the video just now? So it talks about the, the very famous case study about the Kitty Genovese, right, murder. So again, 38 people being the witness and nobody called the police. And that's the bystander effects that was trying to explain such an effect in which, because there what's the key point that was mentioned in the video, just to have a check whether you're paying good attention. Okay, so I see a response. So people would think other people will help, right? Because there's more than one person, one witness. There's the more the people, the more the bystander, there will be the effect of not taking the responsibility, right, to do something to help. What else? So in the last example that was discussed in the video, so helping the man who seems to be walking very abnormally, is that clear, or is the situation ambiguous? So in the video, it mentioned about the point whether an event is ambiguous or clear enough, then that will also affect whether we will help or not. So for example, in the second example that was discussed in the video, it's about helping the old man who was working abnormally. So we did not know that man was intoxicated, or it's actually because he was not feeling well, right? But if we can clear up that confusion or ambiguity, then we'll probably will be more likely to help that man. So let's elaborate a little bit about the bystander effect. So this is simply the probability of how we behave prosocially. It's more affected by the number of people that are around in the same situation. So like in the Kitty Genovese murder situation, there are 38 people around us in the same situation. And that is how diffusing or reducing our responsibility to give a hand, which is the bystander effect. So in 1970, another group of scholars are trying to develop the step-by-step description of how we decide whether to intervene in an emergency. Okay. So what factors in a way is trying to see which specific factors are actually whether affecting how we help or not, even there's bystander, or is there any other factor that is also being contributing to the outcome of helping behavior. So in the bystander effect, you can see from the figure, specifically, even there's a bunch of like other people around in the same situation, there are some specific factors that will determine whether we will help or we will not help, okay, in that situation. So for example, notice the event. So that's the distracted. If you're distracted, if you're in hurry, then you fail to notice. So in the the video, a little video about like the man lying on the floor. So that example, like people might be distracted because they're in hurry. So if they do not notice the events, then they will probably would not help, right? So another factor is interpret the events as an emergency. So do you think that is like a very emergency or that a dangerous situation in which you got to help? If it is like a non-emergency, then you're probably not helping. Okay, so if that person is not dying, it's like he seems to be like drinking a lot or like being abusing drugs or stuff like that, then you probably don't think that's an emergency. So that's the pluralistic ignorance, determining you're thinking that events is not emergent enough for you to stop and help. And then the third is the assumed responsibility, which is the diffusion of responsibility, meaning that you may fail to assume your personal responsibility to help, and that's why you did not stop to help. For example, in a Kitty's Genovese murder, there's a bunch of different bystander or witnesses around, and you think that everyone has the responsibility to help, like you're not the only one who is witnessing such an emergency. So you fail to assume personal responsibility. And you assume that the other people will call the police. And that's why you did not give a hand to that person. And then fourth is no appropriate form of assistance. So if you feel like you don't have the ability or competence, capacity to offer help, then you probably will stop helping, or you will not stop to help. For example, in Kitty's murder, if you don't have a phone, if you don't feel like you're strong enough, then you probably will not go down there to help, or you will not be able to call the police. Okay, so that's a lack of knowledge or lack of competence that will stop us from helping. And the fifth is implement decision. So whenever we want to help and in emergency, then you will think about your own, whether it's dangerous to you, whether it's legal to do a thing to help, or is it embarrassing to do a thing to help. So those will be the causes of helping. So if these costs are too high, then you probably would not be likely willing to help. Okay, so for example, sorry for jumping back and forth. So for example, if like in a Kitty's murder case, the perpetrator, the criminal, or the person who was stopping Kitty might have a very sharp knife or very dangerous weapon, in which you feel like it will endanger you and cause your risk your life, and you probably won't go down to help, or so on and so forth. So that's how you whether you think there's a cost for helping, or is that too high. So there's a bunch of factors or things that could happen even after you witness or you're situated in an emergency. So it's not only about individual differences. It's not only about personality. It's not only about cultural factor, but also the situational factors as well. All right. So the following are just like a reiterating or summarizing of what I just mentioned, bit by bit just now using the figure. So whenever there's the emergency, we need to be able to notice the events. If we are in a hurry, then we are less likely to help. Pluralistic ignorance is that you think that's not emergency. Okay, you don't think that's you're not sure, or it's ambiguous to determine whether that's an emergency. Then you probably will be if you don't think that's an emergency, or that person is not in danger, probably you're not going to give a hand. So based on Festinger's another study in 1954 specifically, there's the social comparison theory, in which we are trying to use other people as the guide of how to make sure whether, especially in ambiguous situation, whether we should do something or not. So we will see how the others are reacting, or whether, and so that to make sure we should do such a thing, or to help that person or not. Okay, so that's the pluralistic ignorance. And then Okay, so just want to illustrate how the bystander effect is affecting whether we will help the others or not. So there's a study that was done by Darley and Lawton in 1968, and there's a smoke-filled room, okay? So there's a room filled with smoke, and everybody's is realizing that, is aware of that. Okay, so the more and more smoke is filling up the room, do you think like the outcome or people who would escape or who would intervene or try to stop or do something to stop the smoke filling up the room, only 10% intervened. Most of the participants stayed for past like more than 6 minutes. So you can see in this experiment, because there are more people, whenever you see the like that is shown on the the figure on the right, there are two lines, right? One line it's like indicating the 3-person group, and the other line it's about alone. So in two situations, so versus alone and 3-person group, so you're probably more likely to get help or to report smoke if you are alone. So the faster that you will report as well. But if there's more people, then you probably stay there. And actually, most of them stay for more than 6 minutes. And 70% of if it's a lone situation, then 75% will seek help. So what does that mean? What does that tell us? What do these findings tell us about bystander effects? What's the dangerous? Is it dangerous to have the bystander effects? What's the pros and cons? Is there a pros? Okay, so let me see. Okay, hold on. We rely on others, right? And we probably will see, observe, we will try to see how the others react in a way so that we will decide what to do, right? So imagine if you're in a same room, like filling with smoke, and it's not only you in the room, then you probably will see how the others are reacting. If the others are not escaping or yelling for help, then you probably will do the same. That's social comparison, okay, theory. But if you are alone, then you probably will seek help because you want to, like you are alone, you don't have anybody to compare. So it's like it will be faster for you to get help, and also like the percentage, the likelihood for you to get help as well when you're alone in a alone situation. Any disagreement or agreement with this finding about the bystander effect? So in a way, it's quite dangerous, isn't it? Right. So when we are trying to, like, sometimes there's pros, there's advantage of comparing ourselves with the others in a situation so that we can perform appropriately. But what if in emergency? What if someone is in danger? What if we are in danger, right? So that could be problematic for bystander effects. So ensure you understand the pros and cons about like having other in the same situation to compare with. Okay, sometimes it might be beneficial, but sometimes it's not, like the bystander effect, like the Kitty Genovese murder case study. Okay. So here comes the question. So we have been talking about bystander effects, and there are different factors or elements that are underlying why we are motivated to help, or to follow the group or not, like helping. Why is that? So in the bystander effect, like taking the example from the Kitty Genovese murder, no one is actually sure what is happening. Although there's an emergency, they witnessed the person, the lady, was being stabbed by the perpetrator. But it's quite sudden and confusing events in which the bystanders, the people, although there are 38 bystanders being around in the situation, they tend to freeze watching and listening with blank expressions as they try to figure out what's going on. Although it's quite a long period of time, which is like 35 to 45 minutes, that was like for the Kitty's case. But you can see how much effect could be resulted from the bystander effects. When they another reason for explaining the bystander effects is that like when they we glance at each other, then we see a apparent lack of concern on the part of everyone else. So we try to see how the others react. So if we see nobody is reacting or doing things to help, then we'll probably would just be like not care, or we don't think we should be the only one to do something. So we in the bystander effect, it's also expected that nothing is wrong in an emergency because no one is concerned, no one cares. So for example, in a Kitty's murder case, like nobody is, although everyone is witnessing the emergency, but then they didn't, well, since nobody is like doing anything, so they assume there's no such an emergency. Nothing is wrong about sudden events. Okay, but although afterwards, obviously they will understand it's a mistake not to call the police. So, well, just to continue on a little bit more, because bystander effects is a quite relevant effects to understand the situational factors. So under the bystander effect, like what I said, people would be like feeling their responsibility is being reduced when there are more and more bystanders. So for example, in the figure, the photo in at the bottom, you see the person who is like lying on the floor and seems to be injured and unconscious, right? So you can see like people around, there are 4 or 5, right? 5 people are next in the scene, in the situation. So it's very much important to make sure that they feel obligated. They feel like they should be the one to call the police. Imagine that you're one of the witness or one of the passerby. Would you be the one who called the police or ambulance immediately? So as there are more and more bystanders, then probably you were thinking, okay, maybe the other one or the other passerby will be calling the police or ambulance, but not me. Okay, so don't be a bystander. Be someone learn for, to be someone to act or to give a hand, no matter what, even though there could be like a large amount of bystanders around. Okay, any questions? So that's diffusion of responsibility. And then it's similar, to tapping on the concept or the elements that I talked about earlier in one of the figure, is that there's a study that was done by Darley and Latane in 1968, which is called the epileptic seizure study. So in this study, the participants have 2 minutes to discuss their college life. Okay, so so you can see, I'm going to fast forward. So they are discussing, but then like one of the student was saying like there's a seizure, like saying that he was having epileptic seizure. Okay, having an emergency. Okay, so and then the other participants in this situation heard the noises or are aware of the situation, like the epileptic seizure. How long does it take for the participants to help? What do you think? So that is one of the like there are some, like the participants might be thinking that, okay, well, the participants is the only live person, and then they are thinking that maybe the other people in the study is actually fake person pre-recording and stuff like that. So how long does it take for the participants to help? What do you think? So in that experiment in which they were, if there are more bystanders, people thought there were, but less likely that they will help. It's like consistent with previous findings. So let's take a look at the figure on the right. So in that study, that's the epileptic seizure study. So there's a blue line indicating participants who believed they were the only bystander. And then the red line who believed there was one other bystander. And then the purple one believing there were four other bystanders. Okay, so whether to help that person or student in participant in the study with the epileptic seizure, that will be affected by the number of bystanders. So you can see if there's no other bystanders, they will be the participant will call for help or will give a hand to the victim immediately, very fast, right? And also the percentage, the chance likelihood that they will give the help to that person or victim will be very much higher than the other two situations. Okay, so that is to against suggesting, like the findings are suggesting within 6 minutes, 100% lone participants, meaning that they thought they were the only bystander, would give a hand. 81% with two others bystanders and 62% with four other bystanders would help the person who said he or she is having the epileptic seizure. Okay, so that is the study by like in this study, which is the epileptic seizure study, which is also instigating the importance of bystander effects in affecting how fast or how likely that we would help the person who is in need. Okay. So the number of participants matter. Any questions or comments? Okay, so pretty straightforward, isn't it, right? So just to illustrate a little bit more about how under the bystander effect, there are different people around in the same situation, ability to be able to help or not, or competence, capacity is also one of the key factor affecting whether we will give hand. If you see a person who is like lying down on the floor because of the emergency epileptic seizure, for example, if you don't have like a medical training, or if you don't have like a first aid training, then you probably cannot do anything but call the police. So knowing what to do next or how to help will be a factor for affecting how fast or whether we'll be likely to help. So what kind of help is appropriate? It's a thing that we need to consider when we are trying to help the others. And that will, if you feel like you're competent to do a first aid or like a medical, you have a medical training, then you probably would act faster, or you know what to do to help in such a situation. And last bit of the elements about bystander effects is deciding to implement the help or not. So we will see, again, it's very much related to social exchange theory, because we will think about the causes of trying to help. So if it costs you too much, then you probably would stop, or you would hesitate to help. So let's take a look at these again. This is using an example to illustrate how we went through the steps just now bit by bit, from attending to the situation to deciding whether to help or act. So for example, there's an emergency. Example is that bank robber running down the sidewalk carrying a bag of money, right? So step one is you attend to the situation. You look up and see the person, the bank robber. Or another situation is you're too busy reading newspaper to look up. So that's another situation. So obviously, if you look up and sees the man, you're probably aware, attend to the situation, and vice versa for a too busy situation. And then, and as you can see, if you're too busy, then you probably will step away from helping. But if you're like observing that person or you realize that person, you probably would have to do something. And the next step is interpreting the situation. So what would lead you to prosocial response is that you think that man, the robber, could have committed a crime. Or you will step away if you think that person was just running to catch a bus. Okay, two situations. And then the third step is assuming the responsibility. So whether you have to decide to call 911 for help, or you decide it's none of my business. So that would leading to two different responses. And then the fourth step, assessing ability to take action. So whether you will pick up cell phone or you put away your cell phone because you're not expert in crime detection. So and then lastly is deciding whether to help. So for example, like if you decide not to help, it's only because it might be a waste of time and might even cause you trouble. And then that the bystander will be doing nothing in the end. But if you think that punches in a number and presses send, it's not so much of a work, it's not costly, then you probably will call the police as the bystander. Okay, so these all steps or elements will be affecting the outcome of the bystander.